My sister destroyed my art, so I ruined her chances at her dream school with proof of her plagiarism. My sister, let's call her M, 22F, stood across from me, chest heaving like she'd just run a marathon. In her eyes, I saw fury and something that looked like deep hurt. But at that moment, I didn't care what she was feeling. I cared about the ruined painting at my feet, the one I needed for the regional art showcase next week, the one that was supposed to anchor my college portfolio for art school applications. It was gone, and she had done it on purpose. M's lip curled bitterly. "Now you know how it feels," she snapped, voice dripping with venom. I stared at her, my mind scrambling to make sense. "How it feels? What the hell are you talking about?" I shouted back, anger finally breaking through my shock. "I have never... Why would you..." I couldn't even form a coherent sentence. A hot tear streaked down my cheek and I angrily wiped it away. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of seeing me cry. She let out a harsh laugh, but it sounded more like a sob. "You wouldn't get it. You never had to." Her eyes flicked over the destroyed painting, and for a half second her face twisted like she regretted it, but then she hardened again. "Everything's always been so easy for you," Em said through gritted teeth. "Your art, your freedom. Mom and Dad never put the weight of the world on your shoulders. You get to follow your dreams, do whatever you want, and they just let you. They're proud of you for painting some picture, while I..." Her voice cracked, and she stopped herself. I was stunned silent. Easy for me? Was she insane? Nothing in my life felt easy, especially not compared to hers. "You think my life is easy because I'm..." "What, not you?" I managed, voice shaking. "Because I'm not a damn genius like you?" She glared at me, a tear finally spilling down her face. "Because you're not expected to be perfect all the time," she shot back. "I don't get to make mistakes. I don't get to slack off, not even for a day. I have to be the best at everything, always, or I'm nothing. And you," she gestured at me with a trembling hand, "you waltz in with your little paintings, and everyone fawns over how creative you are. You have no idea what it's like being me." Her words came out in a ragged rush, leaving me reeling. We'd always known she was under a lot of pressure as the eldest, but I never realized she was this resentful. A mix of guilt and anger churned in my gut. I swallowed hard. I'm sorry you feel that way, but how is that my fault?" I said, my voice rising. I pointed at the floor, at my poor painting. "How is this?" My throat tightened. "This destruction going to help anything? You think ruining my future makes yours better?" She looked at the mess, and for a split second, horror flashed in her expression. I thought maybe I finally got through to her. But then, she just shook her head and turned away. "Grow up. It's just a painting," she muttered, and then she walked out of the room, leaving me with my dreams in tatters on the floor. I stood there in the silence after she slammed the door to her upstairs bedroom. My legs felt like lead, and I slowly sank to my knees. When I finally dared to touch one of the larger canvas scraps, my chest cracked open and a sob came spilling out. I clapped a hand over my mouth to muffle it, tears blurring my vision. The painting was ruined beyond repair. Thick slashes cut through the portrait I'd painted, and the carefully blended colors were smudged and smeared. I had never felt so heartbroken and furious at the same time. A few minutes later, I heard our parents' car in the driveway. Perfect timing. They walked in to find me kneeling on the living room floor, surrounded by the evidence of my sister's tantrum. My mom gasped, rushing over to me. "What happened?" I couldn't speak, just shook my head and pointed upstairs at M's room. My dad's face turned red as a beet when he realized what had occurred. He stormed up the stairs, shouting M's name. An explosive shouting match ensued through her locked door, his booming outrage mixing with M's shrill, tearful defensiveness. I caught pieces of it, Dad demanding she come out, asking what the hell she was thinking, and M screaming something about, "No one cares how I feel." It was chaos. Mom helped me pick up the pieces of the painting with trembling hands. She kept whispering, "I'm so sorry, honey. I'm so sorry," as if she had done it herself. I could only nod. I was grateful she was there, but at that moment no amount of apologies could fix what was broken. When Dad came back down, he looked as defeated as I felt. Em refused to come out or properly explain herself beyond emotional outbursts. "We'll deal with this tomorrow," he said heavily. His anger had given way to sorrow and disappointment I'd never seen from him before, at least not directed at Em. That night was awful. My parents retreated, not sure what to do. I heard them arguing softly in the kitchen about the situation, and about Em's stress and behavior. I locked myself in my room, staring at the ceiling, too upset to even cry anymore. At one point through the thin wall, I thought I heard Em sobbing in her own room. It was a muffled, helpless sound. In the past, I might have gone to comfort her. Not this time. I just put in earphones and blasted music to drown out everything. My sympathy for her was paper thin after what she'd done. Some context. Em and I have always been compared to each other. She's 4 years older and set an impossible standard. Valedictorian, debate champion, all of that. Our small-town high school held her up as the ideal, and when I came along years later, I was constantly measured against her legacy. I'm no academic star, though. I'm the artsy one. Our parents tried not to compare us out loud, but I always felt the difference. Em was pushed to excel, and she did. I was left to find my own path, which sounds freeing, but really just felt like they gave up expecting much from me academically. The only place I shined was art, and even there I fought to be taken seriously. Fast forward to now. I'm 18F, a senior in high school, prepping my art school applications and getting ready for this regional showcase that could really boost my prospects. Em is 22 and in her last year of college, aiming for a top grad school, her dream school, that our parents are absolutely drooling over. They've been hyping her up, helping with her application, everything. Em's been stressed to the max, trying to live up to everyone's expectations and secure her place in that program. So yeah, we were both under pressure, just different kinds. But one of us decided to handle it by destroying the other's work. The next morning, the house was like a graveyard. Em sulked at the table, eyes puffy from crying, picking at her breakfast. I was silently sipping coffee, glaring holes into my cereal. Our parents had that stern, disappointed look. Dad broke the silence, voice like thunder in a whisper. Em, you owe your sister a real apology. Em's jaw tightened. She mumbled, I'm sorry for wrecking your painting, but it was barely audible and completely devoid of sincerity. Louder and like you mean it, Dad growled. She met my eyes then, and her stare was icy, even though her voice came out soft and obedient. I'm really sorry. I was upset, and I shouldn't have done that. The words were right, but her tone was wrong, flat, mechanical. I just shrugged. Okay. It's all I could say without my voice cracking in anger. Because that apology? We all knew it was forced. Mom declared that Em would have to help me salvage my project or do whatever was needed to make up for it. Em looked like she wanted to protest, but didn't dare under Dad's glare. Truth be told, there was nothing she could do to help. She'd already done enough damage. As we ate in strained quiet, my mind drifted to something that had been nagging at me since the night before. Something Em said. She screamed at Dad, "No one cares how I feel." And earlier to me, she implied I had it easy while she wasn't allowed to slip up. That pressure to be perfect. Did she actually slip up somewhere? Then I remembered her grad school application essay. Weeks ago, Mom had me proofread a draft of it, because apparently being an art kid means I'm decent at English too. It was oddly well written in parts, with these poetic turns of phrase that sounded nothing like my sister's usual writing. At the time I teased her that it sounded almost copied, and she got really defensive, swearing she just took inspiration from an article. I hadn't thought about it since until now. What if Em had given in to the pressure and actually plagiarized parts of that essay? It would be the height of irony and hypocrisy. Little Miss Perfect cheating on something so important. And if it were true, it would be a way to hit her where it hurt, like she hit me. As I pushed my cereal around, barely eating, an idea sparked in my mind. It was a dark, vengeful idea that made my heart beat faster just thinking it. I didn't have to lay a finger on her physically or destroy her property. All I had to do was expose the truth. If my suspicions were correct, if she really did plagiarize, then she didn't deserve that dream school anyway, right? I knew I had to confirm it first. After breakfast, Em retreated to her room to work on finalizing her application. She had a deadline looming. My parents left for a while to run errands, giving both of us some space. As soon as I was sure I was alone downstairs, I hurried up to my room and booted up my laptop. My hands trembled on the keys as I tried to recall some of those distinctive phrases from her essay draft. One in particular jumped out. Something about the resilience of fragile beauty. That was so specific and not at all in Em's usual straightforward style. I typed it into Google with quotation marks. It took some digging, but eventually, I struck gold. Actually, it felt like striking a nerve. A blog post from a few years back contained that exact phrase, and more than a few sentences that I remembered from Em's essay. I read it, my eyes widening. She really had done it. She'd lifted whole paragraphs from this article, tweaked a few words here and there, but it was undeniably the same content. My stomach lurched. I was excited by this discovery and disgusted at the same time. Part of me had hoped I'd find nothing, that my own sister wouldn't stoop this low, but here it was. Quietly, I closed my door. If Em found out I was snooping, all hell would break loose. I needed to act while I had the chance. I gathered evidence, copying the URL, taking screenshots of the web article alongside excerpts of her essay. I had the draft saved in my email from when I reviewed it. Next, I checked a couple more suspicious lines from the essay. Sure enough, I found another source she plagiarized, a volunteer story on a nonprofit site that she apparently passed off as her own experience in her application. It was unreal. She hadn't just cheated, she'd built her dream application on a foundation of lies. My heart pounded as I compiled everything. My sister, the one who lectured me on how I wouldn't understand pressure, had crumbled under hers and cheated, and no one knew. She likely thought she'd get away with it, get into dream school, and prove she was as perfect as everyone expected, not if I had anything to do with it. I set up a new email account, something that couldn't be traced back to me easily. Throwaway name, fake details. I even used my phone's hotspot instead of home Wi-Fi just in case. I drafted a short email to the admissions committee of her target grad program. I didn't name her in the opening. I phrased it like, "It has come to my attention that an application for your program contains plagiarized material." Then I gave them her full name and application ID. I had seen it on one of her application portal pages she left open once, and said I could provide evidence. I worried they might ignore an anonymous tip, so I attached the screenshots I had taken, one showing a paragraph from her essay next to the identical paragraph from the online source, another showing the second instance I found. I included the direct links as well, noting the plagiarized sections. Reading it over, it sounded convincing enough. Anonymous tipsters aren't always taken seriously, but plagiarism is a big deal in academia. I figured at minimum they'd run her essay through a plagiarism checker after this. And then, well, bye-bye dream school. Before sending, I hesitated. This would ruin her application for sure. Possibly more than that. It could tarnish her academic reputation for a long time. Was I really going to go through with it? The image of my slashed, ruined painting flashed in my mind, along with her hateful words. Yes, I was. With one click, I sent the email. I sat back, adrenaline coursing through me. A part of me felt sick. What kind of person does this to their own sister? But another part of me felt vindicated and strangely calm. In my mind, she set this ball rolling when she decided to wreck something precious of mine. If consequences were a domino effect, she just got what was coming. The next few days were tense, but not outwardly explosive. Em submitted her application the same day I sent the tip. She was oblivious, even a bit more relaxed after hitting submit, thinking the worst of her stress was over. I avoided her mostly. I was civil when I had to be, but I couldn't bring myself to have any normal conversation. I was afraid I'd either rage at her or let slip what I'd done. I threw myself into redoing my artwork for the showcase as much as possible. It was hard to find inspiration with all the turmoil, but working on art kept me from obsessing too much about the ticking time bomb I'd planted under Em's future. Every time Em's phone pinged with an email, I felt my stomach flip, wondering if that was the moment. It took about 3 days. I was home after school, painting in the garage, the only place I could deal with the fumes and mess without bothering anyone. Em was upstairs in her room, likely chilling out now that her big application was finally off her plate. Mom was in the kitchen making dinner, and Dad wasn't home yet. Then I heard it, a scream that cut through the quiet evening air like a knife. It was Em. I nearly dropped my paintbrush. My first instinct was worry. Did she hurt herself? Then came a second scream, more of a frustrated, devastated shriek, and I knew. The email. Mom had already rushed up the stairs by the time I got inside. I hovered in the hall near Em's door, my heart hammering. This was it, my plan's climax. Mom was kneeling beside Em, who was on the floor by her bed, phone in hand. Em was shaking all over, ugly crying in a way I don't think I'd ever seen. I peeked in, trying to look like a concerned sister just now coming to see what the commotion was. "What happened?" I asked, feigning confusion and worry. My acting must have been decent, because neither of them looked at me like I had anything to do with it. Mom's face was ashen as she took the phone from Em to see what was on the screen. Her eyes widened and she whispered, "Oh my God, plagiarism? Em, they're saying you plagiarized your essay?" Em just cried harder, a look of utter horror and panic on her face. She was rocking slightly, tugging at her own hair like she was on the verge of a breakdown. I didn't mean, it was a mistake," she babbled between sobs. "What am I going to do? This can't be happening." I leaned against the doorframe, watching this unfold with a cold, detached feeling. I'd anticipated this moment, fantasized about it even, but seeing it for real felt different. There was no triumph in that room, just misery. And I was the invisible hand behind it. Dad arrived home not long after to the meltdown. When he got the gist that her dream school had rejected her and accused her of plagiarism, he went quiet in that scary way. He asked to see the email, and Mom handed him the phone with shaking hands. I saw his face as he read it. He aged 10 years in a matter of seconds. "What have you done, Em?" he said quietly. It wasn't accusatory, it was, disbelief and disappointment. Honestly, that hurt her more than if he had yelled. Em tried to explain, stumbling over her words. Through hitching breaths, she admitted in a roundabout way that yes, she had taken inspiration from some sources that maybe she didn't properly cite, that she was so stressed and panicked about making the essay perfect. She kept saying she was sorry, that she never thought this would happen, that she thought it was just a small thing and she'd made it her own. She was pleading, more to the universe than to our parents, to undo it somehow. I stood there, silent. My heart was pounding, and my mouth felt dry. Part of me expected someone to suddenly point at me and go, "This was you!" But of course no one did. How would they even suspect that? The whole time, I didn't say a word. I just watched as my parents tried to console her, while also grappling with their own dismay. Mom was crying now too, rubbing Em's back, saying, "We'll figure something out," even though we all knew there was no fixing this. Dad looked shell-shocked, kept muttering about her knowing better and consequences, and why? Why would you do this? Em eventually looked up at me through her tear-streaked face. There was a flicker of something in her expression. Suspicion? Guilt? Desperation? I couldn't tell. Our eyes met, and I had to fight every instinct to look away or start crying myself. I must have looked like I was in as much disbelief as they were, though for different reasons, because she didn't hold the stare. She just collapsed into Mom's arms, sobbing like a little kid. I backed out of the doorway. I felt like I was watching something I shouldn't. This was a family tragedy that I had secretly authored, and now I had to pretend to be just another shocked spectator. In my room, behind closed doors, I finally let out the breath I'd been holding. My heart wouldn't slow down. I should have been happy, right? This was what I wanted. Justice. Payback. But all I felt was a heavy emptiness and a growing pang of guilt. I thought of going back in and confessing everything in a dramatic reveal, like, "Ha! It was me! This is what you get for what you did." But I couldn't do it. That would just shift all the blame onto me and away from her actions, and in the chaos, I might actually become the villain in my parents' eyes. And maybe I was a coward, but I didn't want Mom and Dad to hate me. They were upset with Em, yes, but if they knew I sabotaged her, I'd become the monster instantly. Some part of me realized that, in their eyes, my retaliation would seem far worse than her initial crime, so I stayed silent. That night, no one really slept. I could hear Em through the wall, sometimes muffled crying, sometimes angry bursts, thuds of her throwing something, a drawer slamming. My parents' low voices murmured late into the night, likely discussing where they went wrong or what to do. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of what I'd done pressing down on me. By ruining her chances at her dream school, I'd accomplished my revenge. But our family might never be the same. In the darkness, I kept seeing my sister's face when she realized her dream was shattered. It overlapped with the memory of my own face reflected in the glass of my ruined painting. Pain for pain. Eye for an eye. Maybe some would say she had it coming, and maybe she did. She absolutely wrecked me when she tore through my heart. But what I did, was it proportionate? Was it right? I honestly don't know. All I know is, as I lay there with both of us separated by a thin wall and a canyon of hurt, I didn't feel like I'd won anything at all. I felt like we both lost. Update 1. It didn't take long for the other shoe to drop. Just one day after my original post, Em confronted me, and now everything is out in the open, and it's somehow even messier than before. I honestly thought I could get away with what I'd done quietly. My plan was to keep my head down, let Em think the school found her plagiarism on their own, and just exist in the uneasy silence that had fallen over our family. But deep down, I think I knew she would figure it out. There aren't many people who had access to her essay draft or motive to send it in, and she knows me too well. Last night, I was in my room trying, and failing, to do some homework when Em burst through my door without knocking. I jumped up, heart in my throat. She looked awful, eyes bloodshot, face puffy, a look that was somehow both desperate and enraged. She closed the door behind her and just said, "It was you, wasn't it?" I froze. What? What was me? I tried to play dumb, but my voice betrayed me, shaking and weak. She advanced toward me, holding up a piece of paper. At first I thought it was the email from the school, but she threw it onto my bed and I realized it was a printout of something. I glanced at it and my stomach dropped. It was a screenshot of an email, my anonymous email, specifically a printout of the tip I sent to her university with my fake name and all the evidence. How the hell did she get that? "I found this on Mom's computer," she hissed, answering my unspoken question. She left her email open. The admissions office forwarded her a copy of this after I called to appeal. They thought maybe a family member or counselor sent it. Mom didn't even know what it was, but I sure do. I felt like the floor was tilting under me. In my rush and panic, I never considered the school might reach out to my parents, especially since Em was apparently appealing the decision. Of course she'd try to fight it. It's her future on the line. And apparently, the admissions people had forwarded my anonymous tip to my mother for clarification. Mom hadn't mentioned this to me at all. Maybe she hadn't checked her email yet, or she was waiting to process everything. But Em saw it first. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. There was no point denying it now. My own evidence was literally printed on paper right there. Em's hands were balled into fists at her sides. She was shaking. "How could you do this to me?" she screamed, her voice cracking horribly on the word do. It sounded like it tore out of her throat. I'd heard her yell plenty in the last couple days, but this was different. This was pure hurt. Something in me snapped back. "How could I do this to you?" "Are you kidding me?" I shouted, finding my voice. "You destroyed something of mine that I can never get back, Em. You think I was just going to take that lying down?" We were toe-to-toe now, both of us shaking with anger. "So ruining my entire life is payback?" she snarled. "You could have gotten me kicked out of school. You've probably ruined any chance I have at grad school anywhere. Do you know what you've done?" I flinched at that, because I hadn't actually considered beyond the dream school. If other universities found out, or if word spread in academic circles, oh God. My silence just made her more furious. "All because I lost it for one moment and tore up your stupid painting?" she spat. "It wasn't just a stupid painting," I yelled. "It was my future. It was the one thing I had that made me feel worth something, and you shredded it like trash. You think your future matters more than mine? At least you can apply to another school, or try again later. I can't get my art back, Em. I can't get the time back either. You took that from me." We were making so much noise that it was only a matter of seconds before our parents barged in. I didn't even hear them coming over our shouting match until my door flew open and Dad was there, Mom right behind him. "What is going on?" Dad roared, looking from me to Em and then at the mess of papers on my bed, the printout plus some notes I had scattered. Em rounded on them, wild-eyed and sobbing now. She jabbed a finger toward me, choking on her words. "She's the one who sent that email. She sabotaged me." The look of shock on my parents' faces would have been almost comical if the situation wasn't so horrifying. Mom's gaze darted to the printed email on my bed. She must have recognized the format or the wording. Her hands flew to her mouth. "Oh my God!" Dad just stared at me like he didn't understand the words. "You did what?" he asked quietly. The disappointment and disbelief in his voice cut through me like a knife. My throat was dry. There was no escape. "I sent the evidence of Em's plagiarism to her school," I said, hearing my own voice as if it belonged to someone else. "After she destroyed my painting. I wanted to make sure she faced consequences." There was a beat of dead silence. My mother actually whimpered and sat down on the edge of my bed, like she might faint. My father's face turned an alarming shade of purple. "That's not your place. That's your sister's future you toyed with," he finally thundered. I had never heard him yell at me like that in my life. I felt a flare of indignation even through my guilt. "And what about my future?" I shot back with a bitter edge. "She didn't think about that when she ripped my work apart. You were going to let her off with a crappy apology. She was never going to really make it up to me." "You should have come to us," Mom cried, tears in her eyes. "We could have handled this as a family. This was not the way." Em was pacing in a small circle, hands in her hair, crying and laughing in disbelief at the same time. "Unbelievable," she gasped out. My own sister wanted to destroy me." That one stung. I stepped toward her. "I didn't want to destroy you, Em. I wanted to stop you. You think I enjoyed doing that? I wouldn't have done it if you hadn't. If you hadn't done something unforgivable first." She whirled to face me again. "Unforgivable?" Her voice blew out on a sob. "Fine, then I'll never forgive you either." "Girls, stop it!" Dad barked. But we were beyond hearing him. I was crying now too, angry tears spilling. "You never apologized sincerely. You never even understood what you did to me. You're just mad you got caught." "You ruined my life!" she screamed, tears streaming down her face. "I wish I never had a sister. I hate you." That hit me like a slap. I recoiled, my back thumping into the wall. In all our years, through all the fights, we'd never said we hated each other. Not like this. I felt the blood drain from my face. Mom was sobbing, begging us to calm down, but Em just bolted from the room. A second later, her bedroom door slammed so hard I felt the vibration. I slid down the wall, burying my face in my arms. I could hear Mom crying and Dad trying to comfort her, his voice shaky. He looked at me with a mixture of rage and heartbreak that I'll probably never forget. "This has gone too far," he said quietly, We're broken now." He didn't finish. His voice choked up. "They left me there on the floor, crying alone. No one talked to me the rest of the night. Not that I had the energy to seek anyone out. I just lay in bed, feeling like a monster." The rush of confession and confrontation had passed, leaving cold dread behind. I kept hearing M's words on loop. "I hate you. Maybe I deserve that." This morning, I woke up to find that M had already packed a bag and left to go back to her college apartment early. She was supposed to stay the week at home, but she couldn't stand to be under the same roof as me. I can't blame her. Part of me was relieved she left. The air in the house felt toxic, and I don't think either of us could handle another screaming match. My parents haven't said much to me besides the absolute basics. They're devastated, mostly for M, but also in general. I think they don't even know how to deal with me right now. Dad can't even look at me, and I can tell Mom has been crying on and off all day. So yeah, it's all out in the open now, and it's ugly. I got my revenge, and I told myself it was justified. But seeing the fallout, I feel like the villain of the story. M and I have never been this broken. Our family has never been this broken. I don't know what's going to happen next. M is gone, my parents are shattered, and I'm just here, living in the wreckage that I created as much as she did. Update 2. It's been a few months, and a lot has happened, though the wounds are far from healed. I wish I had a happier update, but if anything, things have become more somber and painfully real. After that explosive confrontation, M effectively cut me out of her life. She went back to her college and refused to return home for a long time. We didn't talk at all. Every time I thought about texting or calling, I remembered her scream, "I hate you," and I lost the nerve. I can't blame her. Maybe she truly does hate me now. I focused on finishing my senior year of high school. Somehow, amidst the chaos, I managed to graduate. I even got accepted into an art school program, not the top one I dreamed of, but a decent college that liked my portfolio, what was left of it after the incident. That should have been great news. But when I told my parents, the reaction was painfully muted. They said they were proud, but it was like they couldn't fully celebrate anything with our family still fractured. I get it. My achievement was a small bright spot, but their other daughter was off in darkness. Speaking of M, she graduated from her undergrad last month, but there was no big celebration there either. She didn't attend her own commencement ceremony. She couldn't bear to, I think. Our parents went to her campus to pack up her apartment and tried to convince her to come home afterward, but she refused. She's moved in with a friend somewhere in the city near her college. I wasn't there for any of this. I stayed home, but Mom told me in a hushed voice that Emma is not doing well. Apparently she's depressed and has been seeing a therapist. She won't talk to Mom or Dad much either, beyond what's absolutely necessary. She knows they know what happened, and I think she's drowning in shame and anger. The dream grad school is obviously off the table. Her appeal to the admissions committee went nowhere. They upheld the rejection due to the confirmed plagiarism. Worse, word got around in her academic department at college. While she wasn't formally punished at her undergrad, since the essay wasn't a submitted assignment for a class, professors and classmates learned about it through the grapevine. She lost a lot of trust and goodwill she'd built over the years. One professor who had been lined up to write her a recommendation for another program rescinded it after learning what happened. She told Mom, in one of the few conversations they've had, that her plan now is to lay low for a year, work a basic job to pay bills, and maybe try applying to different grad programs later once the stigma dies down. In short, I really did a number on her future, just as she said in our fight. It's hard to reconcile that with the image of the sister I grew up admiring. Hearing all this secondhand made me sick with guilt. In my worst anger, I wanted her to pay, yes, but I didn't envision her entire life derailing like this. I thought she'd just get rejected from the one program and maybe learn a lesson. End of story. I was naive about how far the repercussions would spread. A few weeks ago, I finally mustered the courage to reach out to M directly. I wrote a long email because I figured she'd delete a text or hang up if I tried calling. In the email, I poured my heart out. I apologized for everything. For taking it so far, for hurting her, for not finding another way. I told her I missed her, that despite everything, she's my sister and I love her. I even acknowledged that I understood, at least a little, how much pressure she was under, and that I was sorry if I ever made her feel like I didn't care, or like I had it easy by comparison. It was probably too little, too late, but I needed to say it. She didn't respond. I wasn't even sure she read it, until a few days later when I got a one-line text from her number, "I got your email." That was it. No indication of how she felt about it. I texted back asking if we could talk sometime, or if she'd let me visit. No reply. I won't lie, that crushed me. But I know I don't have a right to expect forgiveness, certainly not so soon, or maybe ever. I keep telling myself at least she acknowledged it. It's better than nothing, maybe. My parents, I think they're trying to stay neutral, but it's hard and it's weird. They have every right to be furious with me, but they haven't explicitly yelled at me since that night. Instead, they walk on eggshells around me. Dad is very quiet these days, not his usual self. Mom tries to fill the silence with small talk, or forced cheeriness, but it's strained. I can tell they are both grieving the situation. They want their daughters back the way we used to be, and they're slowly coming to terms with the fact that might not happen anytime soon. One thing Mom did say to me that stuck: we all share blame in this. She didn't elaborate much, but I know what she means. M made a terrible choice under pressure. I responded in an extreme and cruel way, and Mom and Dad, in their way, created an environment of intense expectations and comparisons that set the stage for all this resentment. It's a mess of everyone's making. That doesn't absolve me. If anything, it makes me feel worse that my parents feel responsible too. As for me, I've been alternating between trying to move forward and feeling stuck in the guilt. I started my summer job to save money for college, and that helps take my mind off things for a few hours a day. But some nights I still lie awake thinking about the chain of events. Sometimes I get angry again, at M for what she did to me, or at how my parents handled things. Other times I just feel this hollow sadness, like I threw away something precious. I had a chance encounter with M about 2 weeks back. Totally unplanned. It was at a mutual family friend's small outdoor gathering. Neither of us expected the other to be there. The moment I saw her across the yard, my heart nearly stopped. She noticed me too and went pale. We locked eyes for maybe 1 second before she turned away. We didn't speak at all. She avoided me as if I were a stranger. I didn't have the courage to approach her, not with so many people around and not knowing how she'd react. She left early, and I pretended it didn't shatter me inside. But it did. We used to laugh together at these very same friends' barbecues, hiding by the punch bowl to gossip. Now we can't even look at each other. I'm leaving for college in a month. Em is staying in-state, working, and possibly taking a couple of night classes to keep herself busy. I doubt I'll see her before I go. Mom still holds out hope that maybe with me gone, everyone will have some space and time to heal, and perhaps M will soften. I'm less optimistic. The last real thing she said to me was that she hates me. Even if she didn't mean it forever, it's how she feels right now.